This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, November the 17th in 1993, the World Cup qualification round would take a massive turn, especially in Europe. Now, the 1994 qualification for the 94 World Cup in the U.S. always had basically took a turn in all the other continents. In North America, Canada was close to qualifying for the World Cup, knowing that the Americans were in due to them hosting. There was one CONCACAF spot left. Unfortunately, Canada, for all how they were close, ended up losing to Mexico for the CONCACAF spot. Mexico qualified. Canada would have had to be forced into an intercontinental playoff. In South America, Colombia shocked Argentina 5-0 in Argentina, of all places, and Argentina just went dark and all of that. The country it was like, what the hell was going on? How could Argentina lose to Colombia? In Africa, there were the feel-good story was Zambia. After they had a plane crash that killed most of their squad partway through the qualifying campaign, thankfully Zambia had enough players to rebuild the national team, and also a couple of their star players were playing in Europe who didn't play in the qualification games. Thus, they didn't they didn't perish in the crash. Zambia needed to beat Morocco on the final day of the African qualifying to qualify, and that would have been one of the greatest Cinderella stories of all time in the World Cup. But sadly, though, Morocco won the game 1-0. So Zambia missed out. Over in Asia, Japan shockingly had a great chance in the tournament in Doha, Qatar, to actually win this thing and get to the World Cup. But sadly, though, they choked mightily. Their qualifying campaign is made by the words, the shame of Doha, if you will. But this was the last time Japan missed out on the World Cup, as of right now. But Japan is still qualifying in qualification. Over in Oceania, Australia was the best Oceania team, like Australia, New Zealand, and the islands and all that. Australia did not qualify for the World Cup directly. They would end up by draw facing Canada. And it looked like Canada had a good chance to win and maybe get to the World Cup. But unfortunately, Canada ended up fumbling. Both teams won 2-1 on home turf. 1-1 each. That meant we would have to go to we would go through penalty kicks. Sadly, though, Australia beat Canada on penalty kicks. And Canada just had been blown out. However, the fact of the matter is that wasn't it. Australia won. They didn't get to the World Cup. They would have to face one of the runners-up in the group. South America had two groups, a group of 5 and a group of 4. They said that whoever took second in the group of 4, because it was the easiest of the thing, would have to go through the playoffs. And guess what? It was Argentina. Colombia qualified. Argentina would take on Australia, and thanks to them actually getting Diego Maradona back from retirement, Argentina took care of Australia. So Canada would have been nipped by Argentina possibly. So I guess that's the best way to lose. But nothing could compare everybody with the fact of Europe and how tight it was. Each group had a story to tell. Group 1 saw Italy, Portugal, and Switzerland fight on November 17, 1993 for 2 spots. Switzerland were in 3rd place, but beat Estonia, which was easy. That meant Italy and Portugal would meet in Milan. They were level on points and goal differential. So Italy had an advantage because they scored more goals. So thus, So thus it would be a big match. Italy just needed a tie to get in, and Switzerland could easily take down Estonia to move on to the World Cup themselves. Unfortunately for Switzerland, for Portugal, they ended up losing to Italy. So it was just not a good idea. But Portugal lost to Italy. Switzerland crushed Estonia 4-0. Italy did manage to do it. Portugal fumbled. Then we come to England's group. England needed to crush San Marino and hope that Poland would do them a solid by winning at home against the Dutch. Because if memory serves me right, was it Norway? Yeah, Group 2. Norway had qualified. It was like Norway of all teams. Norway? Man, oh man, I'm having flashbacks to that 1981 game when Norway beat England, and that radio announcer from Norway said, "You boys took one hell of a beating." So England needed Holland to fuck up. Worst of all was that within 7 seconds, pardon, England was down 1-0. How? Because they screwed up. Stuart Pearce tried to make a back pass to the goalkeeper, David Seaman, but sadly, though, it failed, and David Gualtieri scored. It was 1-0 for San Marino. Fortunately, though, England did win, but they only won 7-1. They had to win by 7, though, and hope Poland won by any margin. So technically, they were done 7-1. Although Holland did beat Poland 3-1, so they won anyhow, so it didn't matter. And this was the last time England would be out of the World Cup. They didn't qualify in '94. That was the last time they failed. And now in 2021, England did just qualify by beating San Marino, crushing them, so that they get into the World Cup automatically. They don't have to go through a playoff stage. Thank goodness for that. Anyway, England just failed miserably. In Group 3, Spain would face Denmark, the defending European champions in Seville, and Northern Ireland had to face their cousins, the Republic of Ireland, in Belfast. Denmark, Spain, and Ireland were all fighting for a spot. Denmark was leading by 1 point. If it was decided before the final group of games, Denmark and Spain would get in, as Ireland would miss on goal differential. Denmark knew they needed a tie to get into the World Cup in the States. Spain and Ireland knew they had to assure qualify with a win. They might get through with a draw. Everything was huge. Obviously, the Battle of Ireland was huge. There were rumors that they would have to move the game from Belfast to possibly Wembley Stadium, but it went ahead. So anyway, it was a tight match between Ireland and all that. Jimmy Quinn scored for Northern Ireland. But Ireland needed a goal. They needed to tie that up. Unfortunately, Alan McLaughlin in the 76th minute to give Ireland the tie. It was amazing. They got the tie and all that. And that was huge. Now, Denmark took on Spain. And unfortunately for Spain, their legendary goalie, Zubizarreta, made a challenge to Michael Laudrup, his Barcelona teammate of all things, and took him out on the edge of the box. So he was replaced by Canizares, a 23-year-old who was making his international debut. And Denmark thought they had it. So Denmark thought with Spain having a man down, they were going to be okay and all that. But little did they know that that Canizares played the game of his life, if you will. And it was shocking. All that. Canizares actually got lucky that he didn't get called for a push on one of the Danish players. And all that. It was amazing. And all that. The game ended 1-0 for Spain, and the Republic of Ireland were qualifying alongside Spain to the World Cup, and the defending Euro champs were done for. And then came Wales. How about Wales? They were looking good. They were trying to get to their first World Cup since 1958, and all that. They were 28th in the world rankings, which was amazing. They got lots of telegrams, even from English players. So after England was blowing out San Marino, BBC decided to switch to the Wales versus Romania game. Wales needed to win by 2 to be certain of qualification. But they also remembered that any type of win, if they won, they needed the Republic of Czechs and Slovaks. You know, that's the name they gave, the RCS, that's the name they gave that team because of Czechoslovakia being broken up into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, but it wasn't done yet. They needed Belgium to make sure that the Czechs and Slovaks would not win. The Czechs and Slovaks needed a win to qualify, and Belgium and Romania just needed a tie. Belgium tied the Czechs, so Belgium was in. Wales didn't know, but they just needed a win. Romania crushed Wales 5-1 in the first fixture, so now it's time to go. It was amazing and all that. Unfortunately, Hadji drove a low shot underneath Neville Southall, who was one of the best goalkeepers around. He was 35 years old at the time. However, Wales had tied the game thanks to Saunders. It was 1-1. It was 1-1. And after a tug from Prajescu to Gary Speed, Wales had a chance to take the lead on a kick by Bowden. He was a good penalty kicker. He actually put Swindon into the Premier League with a penalty kick. He was 3 for 3. Unfortunately, he hammered the penalty against the crossbar, and that ended up hurting us. Romania scored to make it 2-1. Wales had not lost at Cardiff Park since 1910. Can you believe it? 83 years without a loss. So it was just terrible. Wales was just, can you believe it? You know, Bowden's not happy and all that. So anyway, another biggest thing, but nothing can compare in the World Cup qualifying havoc of 1994 compared to the French team. France looked huge and all that. It was straightforward. Their last two, France had 2 chances to qualify for the World Cup on home turf against Israel and Bulgaria. And Israel sucked. They didn't win a game, and France crushed them 4-0 last time. And France had not lost a World Cup qualifier at home in 25 years. France was up 2-1 with 8 minutes left in regulation. All France had to do was just play conservatively. They win. They're in the World Cup. However, strange as it sounded, they blew it. And Yael Berkovich and Raven Attar scored. And Israel won 3-2 in France, of all places. And France were in trouble. However, they did need only a tie against Bulgaria. So nothing to worry about. And France had the goal. Eric Cantona, the legend of Man U, well, the soon-to-be legend of Man U, scored to make it 1-0. Unfortunately, Konstantinov scored to make it 1-1. And it was huge. The clock was right, 89 minutes, 43 seconds. All France had to do was basically take possession, keep possession, make sure Bulgaria doesn't get in on net, and they have the tie that would have sent them to the World Cup and not Bulgaria. Unfortunately, Genoa, the substitute, decided to launch a long pass towards Cantona. Well, I mean, you want to help your teammate. However, in the span of 16 seconds, Genoa tries to pass Cantona, he fails, and then Panev had a spectacular pass, and Konstantinov did it again. He scored off the underside of the bar from a narrow angle. And Bulgaria had just won the game 2-1. It was just shocking and all that. It's just unbelievable how this could happen. And France were knocked out of the World Cup. They were out. Bulgaria was headed to the US and not France. Wow. Needless to say, Genoa was probably not picked for the French national team after '93. I wouldn't blame him. But yeah, the World Cup qualification stage in '94 was one of the craziest in history. Although you could say 2017, well, -18 for the 2018 World Cup when the US, Italy, Chile, and Holland, all superior teams, failed to qualify for the World Cup. And the Americans had the best chance. All they needed to do was tie or beat the lonely Trinidad and Tobago squad, and they fucking blew it. How can you blow it? And now I'm worried about Canada's hopes. Although, as of right now, we are in a position to get to the World Cup. But can we hold on? That's screw Panama. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.